Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that digs deep into the shadows of a small town where secrets were buried, and truth was never meant to come out. This is the story of what really happened behind closed doors, the mystery they tried to erase. It all began in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everything looked ordinary. Families knew each other, people smiled as they passed by, and everyone believed they lived in a safe and peaceful place. But behind one house's closed doors, something far darker was happening, something that would soon shock the entire community. The family living there was the Andersons' Mark, a respected local contractor, his wife Laura, a schoolteacher, and their teenage daughter Emily. From the outside, they looked like the picture of perfection. But beneath that perfect image, there were cracks. Neighbors often heard shouting late at night, things breaking, and sometimes complete silence that felt heavy and strange. One cold evening, Laura Anderson didn't show up to work. Her coworkers thought she might be sick, but when she missed 2 days in a row without calling, alarm bells started to ring. When police went to the house for a wellness check, Mark answered the door calmly. He said Laura had gone to visit her sister in another state. But when officers tried to contact her sister, she denied it. Laura hadn't been there at all. That's when suspicion began to grow. The police noted that Mark seemed unusually composed. He spoke clearly, his words were careful, but his eyes, they avoided every question. The officers left, but made a note to follow up. The next morning, Emily Anderson didn't show up at school either. When officers returned, the house was locked. No one answered the door, but neighbors said they'd heard drilling noises late at night. One of them even said they saw Mark loading large trash bags into his truck around 3 a.m. When police finally entered the house with a warrant, what they found changed everything. Inside the house, it looked spotless, too clean. Every surface was wiped down, and there was a faint smell of bleach in the air. But in the basement, a section of the wall had recently been repaired. The plaster was still slightly wet. Forensic teams broke it open and discovered traces of blood behind the wall. DNA later confirmed it belonged to Laura. The search expanded. A few miles from the house, near a riverbank, police found a set of clothes wrapped in a tarp, Laura's clothes. It was clear something terrible had happened, yet Mark insisted he was innocent. He said Laura had left after an argument, and the blood was from a small accident she'd had earlier that week. But his story didn't fit the evidence. Detectives uncovered financial records showing Mark was in heavy debt. He had taken out large life insurance policies in Laura's name just a few months before she vanished. They also found text messages between Laura and a close friend where she confessed that she was planning to leave him. She was scared, she said, because Mark had become controlling and unpredictable. In one message, she wrote, "If anything happens to me, it's not an accident." The police brought Mark in for questioning. He sat in the small room, his hands clasped, his face expressionless. They showed him the evidence, one by one, the texts, the insurance documents, the photos of the basement wall. Still, he denied everything. Then came the turning point. Forensic experts found fingerprints on the tarp by the river. They belonged to Mark. They also found traces of a specific brand of industrial adhesive, the same one used at his construction sites. It was enough to charge him with murder. But the case didn't end there, because something strange happened next. Just before the trial began, Emily's best friend came forward. She said Emily had told her something shocking before she disappeared. She said Emily had walked in on her parents fighting, and she heard her mother scream. When she ran downstairs, she saw her father holding something, a heavy metal wrench, and her mother on the floor, not moving. Emily tried to call for help, but Mark stopped her. After that night, no one saw Emily again. When police returned to search again, they found a hidden compartment under the garage. Inside it, they found Emily's necklace, a small silver heart she never took off. DNA tests later confirmed traces of her blood on it. The horror of what had happened was now undeniable. Mark wasn't just suspected of killing his wife. He was now believed to have silenced his own daughter to cover it up. The media went wild. News channels ran constant coverage of the Anderson house mystery. Reporters called it one of the darkest crimes the town had ever seen. Neighbors who once waved at Mark in the morning were now haunted by guilt, wondering if they could have stopped it, if the shouting they ignored had been Laura's last cry for help. During the trial, the prosecution painted a clear picture of a man whose perfect life was crumbling. They said greed, anger, and control drove him to commit the unthinkable. The defense tried to argue that there was no direct proof of the murders, only circumstantial evidence. But the jury couldn't ignore the mountain of facts. When the verdict was read, the courtroom fell silent. Mark Anderson was found guilty of both murders, but the story didn't end in the courtroom. Years later, investigators revisiting old files found something chilling. A sealed letter hidden in one of Laura's old books, discovered in evidence storage. The letter was addressed to her sister. In it, Laura wrote that she had found something about Mark's past that terrified her. She mentioned he'd changed his name years ago after being questioned in another missing persons case in a different state. The letter was dated only 2 weeks before she disappeared. This revelation reopened a dark history. Detectives traced Mark's previous identity. He had once been known as David Hall. Under that name, he was connected to another disappearance, a former girlfriend who vanished under mysterious circumstances. Her case had gone cold, but now with new technology, they matched partial fingerprints found on her belongings to Mark's. Suddenly, the picture grew darker. It wasn't just one tragedy, it was a pattern, a history of violence hidden behind charm and normalcy. People who once described him as kind and hardworking now realized they never really knew him. Behind closed doors, he had lived a double life, one of lies, manipulation, and murder. The town tried to move on, but it couldn't. The Anderson home was eventually sold, but no one stayed there for long. New owners said they felt uneasy, that lights would flicker, doors would creak open at night, and sometimes they'd hear faint crying. Superstition or guilt, no one knew, but everyone agreed the house carried the weight of what happened inside it. Over time, true crime enthusiasts and investigative journalists revisited the case. They interviewed old detectives, neighbors, and even Mark's former coworkers. They discovered small inconsistencies that made the story even more haunting. Some believed Mark didn't act alone. Others thought Emily might have left clues that were never found. There were whispers that somewhere in the house, one piece of evidence still remained, hidden from everyone. When asked why he did it, Mark never gave an answer. Even in prison, he refused to speak about that night. Some said he was protecting someone. Others believed he simply enjoyed control, even from behind bars. Years later, a journalist wrote a book about the case titled Behind Closed Doors, The Secret That Still Screams, which reignited public interest. It became a bestseller, not just because of the crime, but because it explored a chilling question. How well do we really know the people closest to us? The story of the Andersons isn't just about a murder. It's about what lies beneath appearances. The smiling faces in family photos, the polite greetings, the social gatherings. All of it can sometimes hide a darkness no one dares to see. It reminds us that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, behind closed doors. Even now, people who pass by that quiet street feel a strange chill. The house stands there, looking ordinary, its windows reflecting sunlight like any other home. But those who know the story can't help but look twice, remembering the family that once lived there and the secrets that never fully came out. In the end, the truth can be buried, evidence can be erased, and memories can fade, but something always remains. A whisper, a trace, a feeling, reminding us that some mysteries never truly die. They linger, waiting to be uncovered, reminding us how fragile trust can be, and how easily love can turn into something terrifying. Behind closed doors, the Anderson mystery became more than a crime story. It became a reflection of human nature's darkest side, the side that hides pain, jealousy, and rage beneath a mask of normalcy. And when that mask cracks, it shows us what people are truly capable of when no one is watching. Years later, when a new family moved into the same house, they found an old photograph wedged behind a cabinet. It showed Laura, Emily, and Mark smiling together. On the back of the photo were 3 words written in Laura's handwriting: "We were happy." It's believed she wrote it just days before everything went wrong. That photo, now framed in the local museum, stands as a reminder of what was lost: a family, a future, and the peace of an entire neighborhood. Every person who reads about the case is left wondering the same thing. Could something like this be happening right now, somewhere else, behind other closed doors? The thought is haunting because it's possible. And maybe that's why stories like these matter, not just to reveal the truth about one tragedy, but to remind us to look closer, to listen, and to never ignore the signs. Because sometimes the scariest mysteries aren't in the shadows. They're in the places we think are safest, our homes, our families, and the people we trust the most. And when those doors close, no one knows what really happens inside. So the next time you walk by a quiet house or see a smiling family that seems perfect, remember this story. Remember that behind those closed doors, there might be secrets no one is meant to know. Secrets that someone tried very hard to erase.